When I started my career at Goldman Sachs as a trader, most people in my circle had never seen a black trader. My behaviour as a child was bad. When you're living as an underprivileged family, especially if you're the child, you don't realise it. So I still had the best childhood. My dad used to tell me, "You're a king." I know a lot of people who turned to crime because they couldn't deal with the shame of not being able to wear certain clothes or shoes. Capital is actually a test of stewardship. Biblically, we are supposed to be stewards. We have a duty to educate ourselves. The black community is very disjointed. Within the networks they have, they don't even know what their friends do. I would be earning way more money if I was still in the city. Like, this is me living in purpose.
Hello and welcome to the Faith and Finance podcast brought to you by the Pentecostal Community Bank. My name is Brenda Emmanus and it's an absolute delight to be here in this space where we look and explore how faith aligns with passion and purpose. I am delighted to be joined by Debodun Osekita, a renowned investment coach and founder of the Stock Pickers Academy. With over a decade of experience in investment banking and a passion for empowering others, Debodun has helped thousands of people achieve their financial goal. Well, we're hoping we're going to deep dive into his insights on faith, finance, and wealth building, and you discover how you can be inspired and equip yourself for financial freedom. So, Debs, can I call you Debs?
Yes. Or Coach Debs.
Whatever
you're comfortable with.
Tell me, firstly, how did it start? What shaped your early perspective on money and finance?
I come from humble beginnings, so my parents didn't have much. I grew up in Peckham, on the council estate, the North Peckham estate. The boys responsible for killing Damilola Taylor, they lived next door to me, but we were actually close family friends as well. There was a lot of sleepovers going on both ways. And actually, when you're living as an underprivileged family, especially if you're the child, you don't realize it. So I still had the best childhood. I still had a lot of fun, a lot of memories. I wasn't there thinking doom and gloom. I had a loving family. I was doing okay in school. Yes, a bit of trouble here and there, but it wasn't the picture of suffering. I mean, yes, there were cockroaches in the house, and council housing is not the best when it comes to the aesthetics and the renovation, and there's some restrictions and so on and so forth. But actually, it was when, as I got older, as I moved into different environments, that I actually realized that that wasn't everyone's childhood. When you go to school and you realize other people are buying the latest trainers, even people on benefits. So even amongst the poor or the low income earners, who are still like on the bottom end of that, but we still found a way to find joy. I'm Nigerian, and we have this mentality of suffering and smiling. So if you go to the villages back at home in Nigeria, you still see happy children smiling because that's the environment they know. And within that environment, you find joy.
So you weren't brought up with what they define as a lack mentality?
No, because I think my parents realized that, look, there's the situation is a situation financially. However, you need to, my dad used to tell me, "You're a king." I grew up with these words in my mouth. In my head, that I'm a king. When I go to school, I'm a king. So that gave me confidence to address teachers when they want to enter me for the foundation paper in French, when I know I'm capable of doing higher tier. It gave me that confidence to not have inferiority complex. So even though my parents could only afford brands of trainers that I've forgotten the name of, I wear them to school with chest. And if you say something to me, I'm not going to feel a certain way. Obviously, it's nice to have the nicer trainers, but I was very, very confident in rocking whatever it was my parents could afford. So I was taught contentment from an early age. So it's one of the reasons why I probably didn't turn to crime as a way to afford things like others did, because I had a sense of contentment with what we could afford.
So how much do you think that our mindset impacts how we are and how we behave with money?
Mindset is everything. Money is one of the biggest factors contributing to mental health. So your mindset is your defense mechanism to things that can attack your mental health. And I think parents or adults in position of leadership, if you're a guardian of someone, whether you could be a relative, you could be a grandmother, you could be a foster parent, you could be a natural parent, you could be a teacher. When you're in a position where you have authority over children, you also have that responsibility to impart wisdom and mindset to that child, because that's where I think children are the most vulnerable.
Of course.
And what they see and hear, they absorb. So if you tell a child you're the best, they will eventually become close to the best.
So that's as important. Encouraging your son and empowering them psychologically is as important as teaching them about finance.
Yes.
That's really interesting perspective, and it's probably true. I would say probably.
I know a lot of people who turn to crime because they couldn't deal with the shame of not being able to wear certain clothes or shoes and didn't want to be bullied. And there are other children like myself who accepted the situation for what it was and just knew how to deal with it, thicker skin, not let certain comments fight back with other comments. And you just had to find another way to deal with it. But some people just couldn't do it. They were mentally fragile. And I don't blame them, because ultimately, what were they getting told by their parents? What conversations were being had in the home? So this is where, like, being in a what I call a nuclear family has its benefits, a good nuclear family, because some parents were financially present but emotionally absent, right? Even though the family was a nuclear family.
How much has faith played its part in who you've become?
So I was raised in a Christian home. So we prayed regularly in the house. There were times where we were associated with a church where it was regular Sundays to the same church, and there was times where we stepped away from the church, but the prayer continued at home. When my friends were drinking, doing drugs, and doing all kinds of things that I can't say on the podcast, the stories my parents told about their upbringing and the mistakes they made and the things they did that were unhealthy were building blocks, the foundation of them not passing on those habits to us.
And do you have a scripture or passage of the Bible or quote, a more general quote that you live by, a philosophy?
There's many. I mean, there's honor your father and your mother so you will live long. That's one of the 10 commandments. That's basically saying, even if your parents get things wrong, you can challenge them, you can have those conversations. And my parents were very, very supportive of us challenging them, which again is not typical of a Nigerian household, right? But they were trying to raise kings, they were trying to raise leaders, and they understood that starts down there. So honoring your parents and long life is literally in in the 10 commandments, right? The first 10. So that lets you know from a spiritual point of view how important that is, and that's your starting point. Not to say you're not going to have fallouts and stuff like that, but that's the standard that eventually you need to go back to, right? And if your parents fail in certain things, because there is also, a bit in the Bible that I like, where it's like parents also don't discourage their kids and stuff, but that's not a 10. Which means that even there's a spiritual hierarchy.
Yeah.
So with my parents and the way they raised us, they gave us a room, they gave us space, they gave us that ability to express ourselves and be adult from a young age. So I learned a lot about marriages and relationships, and learning is different from, you can learn something and really deep and understand something, but not necessarily practicing a different thing. But at least that knowledge lets you know where the standard is and where the risks could lie and where the blind spots could be in a relationship that you might not have thought of if you weren't privy to certain conversations.
You're remarkably self-disciplined, but you're also human. Where is the temptation for you? Where would you say that you've made mistakes?
I'd say my behavior as a child was bad. And that's given the household I'm describing I grew up in, right? As I've got older, I've kind of learned about neurodivergence, ADHD, and a lot of this stuff presents itself as boredom in kids, and behavior issues come, and you don't even know, you know, what was driving it. Because I think, yeah, I had a report book in year 3. I got kicked out my first primary school for sticking my middle finger up at my teacher, which is like, that's not just talking in class. That's the extreme end. That's, yeah. So,
But you did exceptionally well in your exams, didn't you?
yeah, I knew my times tables by the age of 5 up to 12.
You're an A-star student.
Yeah, I did very well academically. Was a bit of a child's genius. But when my parents came to parents' evening, it wasn't about my grades. They're not looking at the grades, they're looking at the comments. And that's
parents do.
yeah. And that's where the teachers always got me. Right. And but I think there was like a shift around year 11, year 10 where I was more conscious of my bad behavior. Not that I wasn't before, but there was that extra layer of decision making. Do I need to react to this? Do I need to,
emotional intelligence?
Yeah, emotional intelligence really started to kick in. I became more serious with my behavior. I think my bad behavior career was 15 years deep. Like I was ready to retire.
So beyond your school years, you've now established a really successful business with Stock Pickers Academy. How did you realize that was your calling?
By accident, if
Really?
I'm being honest. I've always felt like my calling is to help people, and that help has to come from what I already know. I mean, I help people in different ways, but in terms of my calling, when I was in primary school, I used to help people with their times tables. So I've always had a natural gifting of teaching, being able to look at the person in front of me, whether you're a PhD person, whether you're a baby, and think, how can I get this education to you or this help to you in a way that's in your world? So I always have this thing that I think about. I've got this saying, if you can't explain it simply, then you don't understand it well enough. If you understand it well enough, then you will be able to package it into a language that's easy to understand. And all that's happened over time is questions in class, spelling, Wednesdays of the week, all this stuff has just changed and evolved into other things as my life experience has gone on. So when I started my career at Goldman Sachs as a trader, most people in my circle had never seen a black trader get the job. So there was a lot of skepticism of if it was possible, right? So me getting that job, so many people back in their Facebook, they changed their display picture to my display picture, which is maybe today like, right, I was like one of the first movers to actually secure something. And it just happened to be Goldman Sachs, which is the #1 investment bank in the world. And that's where I really understood that responsibility. So I've been speaking in schools. So I used to volunteer for this charity called Urban Synergy.
I know Urban Synergy.
Right. So I was doing Urban Synergy from back then.
Wow.
So I was going into primary schools and having days, and that then changed into going to places like SFX, Christ the King, sixth forms. And even though my career hadn't cemented itself, I still was giving back. I was helping people with their applications from university into banking. I was partnering up with organizations like SEO that had even not allowed me onto their diversity program to get into investment banking. But once you land a job, they want you all to be.
Of course.
So it turned into career coaching. It then morphed into investment coaching when 5 years into my career, I didn't know what stocks and shares ISA was. I didn't know what SIP was. I had heard of a pension. I knew what a pension was. I knew I was getting some sort of pension, but I never really checked it or paid attention because I thought it just goes into some government. It's something that I didn't have control over.
Yeah.
And it was growing at a specific interest rate using some product. I never knew that you could actually pick stocks actively in your pension or passively via an index fund in your pension either, until when I left Goldman Sachs 2 years after. They have this deadline where when you leave, you have to take your workplace pension with you and transfer it to a private pension. So I did that, but that was my first. I was learning on the job. I'd never heard of a SIT, never opened one. And that was the first time I opened a SIT, did the transfer, and then eureka moment. I can actually pick stocks in my pension.
But people can be generally quite, unless you know and you're in that world, it can seem quite intimidating. We might know how to do savings, way 10% of your salary or whatever. But stocks and shares and crypto, that world is kind of mind-boggling. What's your ambition to simplify it all?
Well, there is, that effectively taking something that you might not have done before or heard of before, or maybe you've heard of it, but you don't know how to actually execute on it. My job is to take that thing and present it in a way that's easy to understand, to the point where you think, why haven't I done this before? Which is a lot of people that I come across. I wish I knew this sooner is one of the most common bits of feedback. Even my mum. But I said to my mum, you get grace. You and Dad get grace, because those times when I in 1989, I know what it would have been like to open an account back then. No social media. Your circle of friends was basically, it was who you knew. Not internet, social media generation, YouTube generation we have now. Now there's no excuses. If in 25 years your child comes to you and says, where's my ISA? That Bitcoin value we're learning about in history, why didn't you even buy £10 worth? Those questions are going to be asked, and there's not going to be grace. Our parents didn't have internet. Internet started for me in year 9, right? So, and a lot of these things run on the internet.
Of course.
To apply for an ISA or the equivalent account back then, because I think the ISA started in 99 or something, it was written applications, post office, waiting the time for a response to come back as a letter. And to buy the shares, you actually go into the bank, the fund manager, and it was a different process that today, the barrier to entry was just high. Some of those places would have had like minimum amounts of 10K to even have that type of account, a bit like how the private wealth industry is now. So there's grace that you can give to that generation. But this generation, I went to a prison. I went to speak at a prison, and one of the inmates has a stocks and shares ISA set up for his child whilst he's inside. I've learned about this index funds, S&P 500. Please make sure this is set up for the 2 children. And it's been done. And it's been running for 2 years.
There's that Proverb 13, verse 20, I think, that says, walk with the wise and become wise. But when you think about investing, quite often people think on an individual level about wealth building. How much do you think we need to think about families and communities?
Oh, yeah, I think it's really important, especially when we start thinking about inheritance and passing on generational wealth. I think the breakdown of the nuclear family, we're talking about dads not being involved in their kids' life, or dads just going around having kids with multiple different women without it, and being right. Even if the dad did have wealth, it's now being split across multiple different families, and it is a threat to generational wealth, because I read a statistic somewhere that said inheritance actually has surpassed income as being important for building generational wealth. So what you leave behind and how that is managed and maintained is critical to actually conserving wealth between communities. So we need to do more when it comes to preserving the nuclear family. We need to do more where it comes to sibling rivalry and siblings arguing with each other, because that unity is actually also critical to building family wealth, where people, siblings can put money together
Well, there are
and build a
examples and
legacy.
examples of other communities that work together and we're
Yes.
disparate in that respect. Is that
Yes.
what you say?
Without that intention, and it starts with parenting. If you're not noticing that your children are falling out and not resolving conflict properly, it follows them into adulthood. Jealousy starts to creep in when one is doing well, and these things all start to affect how their legacy is built and how it's preserved and how wealth is passed down. I think it's incredibly important to speak on this and to push people and challenge people to preserve relationships, to preserve marriage, to respect marriage, because a lot of the breakdowns and divorces actually comes when you deep it from whether it's the husband or the woman not really respecting the institution and allowing that to break down.
But let's talk about, as Simon Sinek would say, the why. Why do you think it's important? And I'm assuming it's the main principle of what you teach, that we as individuals, as a community, invest as opposed to save or learn, widen our knowledge on what's available to us.
We have a duty to. It's biblical. There's verses in the Bible that support investing. And I know everyone goes to that one that says diversify. That's even strategy. But we have, I've got it here, the parable of the 10 miners.
Go ahead.
Where? So there's a master that gave his servants all money to invest, and one hid it under the bed, buried it. Sorry, not under the bed. Yeah. One hid it under the bed, another one multiplied it, and they were given instructions to grow the money. Right? That's stewardship. So biblically, we are supposed to be stewards. We have a duty to educate ourselves. Right? So I took a few notes. So capital is actually a test of stewardship. Having savings is now a test of. Once you have some savings, you now have the test of stewardship. So you actually have a duty to learn and educate yourself on investing. Otherwise, what are you doing? You are the person who left the money under the and buried it. Leaving money in your cash in account puts you in the same category as that person that buried, that servant that buried the money. Right? And once you look at it that way, and you know how that story turned out, because the master took that one that he buried, and who did he give it to? He gave it to the one that even made the most. Right? Now, that is one of the most uncomfortable truths of that story.
That's a hard knock.
Because what is that? That is the rich getting richer.
Yeah.
Which we protest about, but it's biblical. Unto whom much is given, much is required. And you will be rewarded with the more that you've proven that you can. That is just life. It's biblical. The actual thing that gets said is, do business until I come.
Financial wisdom isn't gained by accident. Financial security is not reserved for the privileged few. Getting your money right requires intentionality, practical resources, and education. That's why the Pentecostal Community Bank offers a wide variety of financial literacy workshops, courses, and support to help you get your finances back on track. Find out more by visiting pcbank.co.uk.
i.e., you have to let your money work for you. And then there's another thing. It says, don't compare your portfolio to others, right? Because they all had different results.
Well, comparison is a thief of joy. That's how I remember.
Comparison is the thief of joy. Apart from when you're actually investing and you're comparing different stocks. Because it's the opposite then. Because you have to compare all the good opportunities and select from a group of good opportunities. Not just, this is a good opportunity, let me invest. Where are all the other good opportunities that, it's like hiring for a job. You don't just hire the fair CV, Oxbridge, great grades, and
there might be talent for someone who's
there might be multiple people who have good grades.
Yeah.
And are all Oxbridge as well. Even that unique data pool you're trying to hire from, have at least 2, 3, 4, 5 options. That's what screening is for. The same applies to love and relationships. The same applies to your money and your investments. So we do have a responsibility biblically to grow what's been given to us. And God actually rewards those who have shown that they can manage more and they can grow more with even more.
So let's talk ROI, which is what, rates on investment?
Yeah.
What about rates on integrity? How do you balance being somebody who's ambitious and wants to grow wealth to somebody that wants to grow wealth for the wrong purposes, or just wants to be greedy, or just wants to have the biggest house? What's your attitude to that?
Again, it boils down to unto whom much is given, much is desired. Responsibility. How you manage that responsibility can also lead to whether you get given more or not. If you try to be spirit led in your approach, you will naturally get closer towards what is moral in your investing, how you invest. But there's some things that start to become out of your control. For example, we all pay taxes, and the government doesn't necessarily do the best job of the taxes we pay. But we're not going to turn around and say we shouldn't pay taxes anymore, right? Or use that as an excuse for tax evasion, right? So if you invest in a company, most companies, if you look close enough for some dirt, every company has dirt,
of course,
right? I looked at, for example, the sanctions list and I saw Volvic, but everyone thinks it's just McDonald's, right? The list is very long. I looked at that list and I said, there's no way. There were things you wouldn't even expect on the list, right? So likewise, when you're investing in stocks and you are trying to grow your money, you have to be, I know some people want to invest in more sustainable, but there's another way to do that. You can protest, you can send letters to the company to change their policies on green energy and sustainability whilst you're still invested in a company.
So you can still invest in companies that not necessarily have the right politics, for want of a better term,
You can
for your benefit, but then use your consciousness, your spirit led to.
Some people don't think the UK has done well for a lot of people in history, right? But they live here. Likewise, you might have some stocks you invest in that might not have the best practices in every point on your mark sheet. But you can't say you're not going to invest in a company because of that. Because your investing is more about growing your savings. It's not really about I know there's conversation.
I find that quite difficult because I know there's certain.
But we then need to apply it to
particular car that I wouldn't now because of what I've seen.
Yeah, so for example, Tesla's a good one, right? Where some people now are not ordering the car. But the business, if you invest in the business can oust their CEO.
That oh, right. I suppose if you know that can happen.
Would you leave a job because there's someone in your workplace that you don't like?
I would have left. I would never work.
Right. Okay.
I'm only joking.
And when you imply that to investing, would you not invest in a good company because there's someone in that company you don't like?
No, I see where you're going with that.
I get, okay, it's the leader.
Yeah.
But you have to trust that there's going to be a point where if it doesn't stop, if certain things don't, the board.
See, my moral conscience comes up heavy on things like that.
I feel like not buying a Tesla is stronger than not investing in the shares.
No.
So most of the protesting that's happening is people not owning the car. And I understand it, and I don't think it's wrong. And I feel like there is there is an element of choice, but I think you just have to be careful not to get to a point where you don't invest in anything because of this.
You don't like
if you want to do S&P 500 index fund investing, it has Tesla in it.
Right. Okay, I see the point you're making.
Your pension, so your company might
you don't even know they're investing in it.
Right, your company might have invested some of their treasury into the S&P 500. So now your company that you work for owns a bit of Tesla.
With your wealth of experience and having empowered hundreds and hundreds of people, what do you see as a common mistake, particularly in our community, that people make when it comes to wealth building?
Not being educated. You won't take a car, right, without driving lessons and drive from London to Manchester. A lot of people have done that equivalent in the stock market, in crypto, and then turn around and say, I'm never going to drive again. I'm never going to invest in stocks again.
Burnt.
Driving is risky. Stocks are risky. But what was your process? What was your strategy? Did you have a community? Did you have a coach? By the time you ask these deeper questions, you realize why their car crashed.
Yeah.
Did you wear your seatbelt? Did you have your MOT, your taxes? Did you check your tire pressures before you went on the drive? Do you even wash your car? So when you look at some of the statistics, only 3% of people who try to pick individual stocks are successful.
Yeah.
They can create fear. And in the Bible, in that story, what happened to the guy who was scared the most?
He put it away and ended up having nothing.
Right. He has a bad PR now. His journey was the worst. You cannot let fear stop you from doing the right thing.
So on a practical level, can you still build wealth if you have a 9-to-5 job, or if you're, say, in your 50s and coming to the end of your career as opposed to the beginning of it? What would you advise?
Yeah, so there's different advice for different people, right? Now, I had a question from someone that was 68. And she was just like, she's learned so much now from me. She was thanking me, but she said that she wishes she knew it sooner because now she can't do anything.
Right.
And then I challenged her. I said, do you have grandchildren? And she said, yes. I said, do they have junior ISAs? She said she doesn't know. I said, the best gift you can give isn't the money. It is pressurizing your child to open a junior stocks and shares ISA for your granddaughter. And then you can put your £10, your £20 a year birthday money in there. Now, what's going to happen is when you're bonding with the child saying, it's your birthday, I'm giving you stocks, they're always going to remember, my grandma gave me stocks for my birthday. They're going to go to school and say, my grandma gave me stock for their birthday. You know you're doing it maybe in the S&P 500 that averages 10%. By the time that child reaches the age of 15, they will understand what that is. But they've had 15 years of watching the journey and watching it grow.
So are you optimistic then that the younger generations will get it? They'll understand.
Already, I went to a talk to educate 15-year-olds about investing. And one of the kids put up his hand and said, so the S&P 500 has been averaging 10% a year for the past 100 years. Will it continue? That tells me that child, I said, how do you even know about this? Do you invest? He's like, yeah, I invest. I said, okay, I'm thinking silver spoon, maybe your parents invest. Do your parents invest? No, they're not interested in investing. So I'm like, have you been able to invest? Do you use an ISA? He's like, no. So he's actually not doing it right. He should be doing it in a tax path. But I said, where did you learn? TikTok.
You see, and that's the thing about social media, I suppose. It democratizes knowledge, and therefore it's accessible to all of us. So the excuses are less. Is that what you're saying?
He has started his investing journey with some experience with his pocket money and he's seen it grow, right? And he's 15. Financial literacy hasn't been taught in schools. Problem. Financial literacy doesn't need to be taught in schools. It did.
I thought it did.
It did.
Yeah.
Back then, they should have taught us. But there's so many YouTube channels now, and there's internet. Financial literacy must be taught on social media, on YouTube, on Twitter, because that's what these kids, that's where the attention is. Yeah. I'm not saying it shouldn't be taught in schools, but it won't really have that much of an effect.
So you have to work out what's right. I mean, knowledge on that's the other
Yeah.
problem with knowledge online. You don't know what's right and what's wrong. So
True.
there's an error
I
caution
think
there.
that it should be taught in schools from the perspective of capturing people that might not even be able to afford the internet, and knowing that actually this is serious. But in terms of the knowledge, I feel like S&P 500, there's nothing really that can go wrong with that. I mean, it hit a new record high yesterday, historical high yesterday. Last year it hit 55 new historical highs. The past 2 years hasn't been great in the world. Just
of course, yeah, that's the truth.
Cost of living crisis, wars,
And
higher interest rates, and despite that, it just keeps hitting new record highs. So, is it risky? It's continuously hit new record highs for over 100 years.
So you would say someone who wants to play safe should do stocks and shares and not enter the crypto market until they've really got knowledge. I
think that everybody should have what we call the bare minimum. You see how you have a bank account and then you have a savings account? Everybody should have a stocks and shares ISA with a direct debit going in. You can do as little as £5 a month, right? And you will earn approximately 10% a year on average.
And what about the myth about property over pension? Whether your property should be? What's your perspective there?
Yeah, I mean, to answer your question on crypto, again, it's the driving analogy. A lot of people jumped into a car,
didn't know what they
and drove from London to Manchester without any lessons, without any knowledge of the weather, without any knowledge of even the car they're driving. Whereas when you're part of a community like the one I run, people in my community, they're privy to conversations that take luck, as they say, out of the equation. They're privy to conversations where you understand it's not just a casino, that there's a whole crypto cycle that happens every 4 years. And in the bull run, in that 4-year period, there's a clear period for buying and there's a clear period of selling around what's called the halving date. You can Google what the Bitcoin halving date is, and you can see every 4 years when it's been, and you can see before it, price has gone up, and after it, price has gone up. So when you look at the 4-year cycle, there's one key moment of what I call low risk, high return. And as you get to the end of the cycle, which is like December this year, January, we get to a phase that starts to become high risk, low return. And you don't really want to be investing in that period. I think
sit still then.
With you're in a what you have, you hold. You don't want to be getting into new positions when you're at that phase. You want to be in low risk, high return, or medium risk, medium return.
Let me ask you about something which is really exciting me, which I'm seeing more and more, is the increase in the level of Black entrepreneurs and people taking ownership of their lives and their own business.
Yeah.
What are the seen and unseen barriers that prevent Black entrepreneurs from becoming as successful as they want? What do you see? The
Black community is very disjointed. There's a massive, massive problem. As someone that's like massively the opposite, because I understand the value in collaboration, in knowing who's who. Black people don't know who's who.
What do you mean by that? Expand on what
you need to know who's who in cuckoo land, as they say. You need to know what everyone does, or as many people as possible.
So build networks.
Within the networks they have, they don't even know what their friends do. They just know there's something in finance or something in. They don't know.
You mean to exploit? Not exploit them, but use them.
Just know what your friends, the people in your network.
Yeah.
Right, regardless of their race, know what people are doing around you. The next time someone says to you, "Oh, I'm trying to raise capital," if you don't know that there's someone in your network that works in a venture capital or private equity or is an angel investor, the thought won't even come to say, "Oh, let me connect you to so and so."
That can work on a basic level as well within the community, isn't it?
Absolutely, right. So I take a lot of time making what I call connections. Connections aren't friends. Making friends is like one of those connections, maybe you might connect on a level of friendship. I connect with people all the time, and I don't need anything from you, and you might not need anything from me, but I know who you are. You now know who I. LinkedIn is great for this. So when someone comes to me and says, "Oh, there's my brother's sister's son has an interview at a law firm," go to LinkedIn, I type in law, and I see if that specific firm comes up. And if I know 3, 4, 5 people there, then I'll send a cold message, or I'll get them to send a cold message to this person and say that I sent them. Right? These are the things that we should all be doing. Now, when you look at entrepreneurs have this habit of building in silence. And when you build in silence, people don't follow you on your journey, your ups or downs. Then you come out with the final thing and you want everyone to come and buy. We don't know who you are.
What would be your advice
Community.
in short?
Community. If you don't have, I have many communities. I'm, you know, if you draw the Venn diagram, I'm in the middle, and I've got loads of football, 10 to 20 football groups from uni, groups from church, different churches, you know, groups from family groups, business groups. I just joined. Now, some people, I'm not a WhatsApp person. Okay, what are you? What's a WhatsApp person? Notification. I put the group on mute, but be inside.
Yeah.
Just put it on mute.
In it to win it, as it
right?
were.
And even if you don't put it on mute, the notifications, Debs, the notifications. Turn your notifications off for WhatsApp.
Barry.
My notifications are off for WhatsApp and have been for a decade. But I open groups. When I see the tick count is going to like 8,000, I just click, tick. But it's not bothering me. Change your mindset. Why is the notification, if the notification is flashing, is bothering you, and your response is to leave the group, it's not you've cut off your leg because your knee is hurting, where really you could have just put braces on your knee and taken cod liver or tablets. Health is wealth.
And turmeric,
right? So sometimes people say these things. Yeah, Debs, the notifications was too much for me. Your group is too busy. And in my head, I'm like, couldn't you just turn notifications off for WhatsApp and then mute the group and then just come in on a need to read the group basis?
Listen,
why is it bothering you to the point where you've left? That's the wrong reaction.
Yeah.
And that applies to any community you're part of, right? I can understand if, like, maybe you've experienced a bereavement or something and you just need to shut out. But then why wouldn't you just, like, close WhatsApp and then put it in hibernation?
The easiest thing to do.
But it's like a lot of people don't really think things through. But then when they need investment, clients, customers, now they've got time on their phone to be pinging you messages, pinging you the pitch deck. I don't know you anymore. You've not been in you're not in my social media stories, not in my WhatsApp groups, I don't know you. What do you think? The first thing, you have to build relationships. So if you don't have a community, join an existing community. There's FFG Connect. There is Stock Pickers Academy. There's Coach Q for Careers. There are so many women's groups, right? Join a community, especially the free ones, and then learn how to manage your time with those communities.
So what's exciting, about moving your own business on and what you want to share with individuals and communities?
I feel like communities is a new gold, right? Whether you're creating your own or being part of an existing one, right? I try and show up at events. When I get invited, I try to honor invitations. That is building relationships. People remember, this guy is always at my birthday. This person was at my wedding. Debs doesn't miss certain key milestones. I think recently I've been missing. Life is just life, but it's not affected what I'm known for doing that. If he could, he would be here. Yeah. If he's not here, then there's a good reason. But some people, there's a good reason and they're never there. And it's always for a good reason. They're never there. They don't want to show up. They don't want to leave the house.
And as a wise man and a disciplined man, how would you align being your faith, your passion, and your purpose with integrity as we round up our conversation?
So most people approach the conversation of building wealth with a get-rich-quick mentality, especially on the teaching side. They show flashy cars, amazing profits as the lure and lifestyle. Look at the lifestyle I'm living. If you want to live this too, this is what I did. Come and do it. I never did that. I said, you know what? I just want to make sure that as many people as possible understand that there is a way to passively, quietly make money in the stock market. I don't charge you to teach you about index funds. I only charge you to pick individual stocks. But please do the bare minimum. 3% of people had the stocks and shares ISA in 2019, and that's risen to 7%. The account type. I didn't say black people in the UK. That is a literacy problem, not a money problem. So it's very important to, for me anyway, to introduce the stock market to a lot of people who there's a lot of gatekeeping. So historically, strategies around investing were seen like the way people are like, oh, he's going to steal my idea.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, they're going to use my strategy, which is so silly because strategies, if everyone is using your strategy, it won't die. It's a myth that carried for a long time. So what I'm doing is disruptive. You're not meant to give the masses your strategy. And I've done that. And the people I'm doing it for don't appreciate it because they can't. And they can't because they won't know even what I'm saying now. Maybe if they listen to the podcast, but they won't be able to deep really that actually I would be earning way more money if I was still in the city. That this is me living in purpose, right? Which for me becomes more valuable than earning double or triple if I was still working a job in the city. Right, because I have my time, I can come here, have conversations like this, I can reply to people in my groups. There's so much more I can do to help people and to have a social impact, and that you can't put a price on.
Well, we're seeing you input on purpose and sharing and being generous with your time and your knowledge that made me really want you to have you here. So I must thank you, and I wish you good luck with everything that you're doing because you're certainly making sure that our community is wealth building with purpose.
Yes.
Debs,
Thank you for having me as well.
Well, it's been a really, truly, what I'd say, deep diving conversation with depth and direction. Debs has showed us with fierce commitment that he wants all of us to wealth build, but wealth build with purpose, wealth build with intent. I think we can't wrong you for that. There's certainly a lot to be learned. So let's build more than bank accounts. Let's be inspired to build our lives with purpose, with power and peace. Until then, walk with wisdom.